The exact moment the world tilted for me was not marked by a sonic boom or the shattering of glass, but by a sickening, encroaching silence that replaced the familiar, comforting hum of our family life. It was a quiet, insidious shift, like a slow-acting poison seeping into the very foundations of everything I had held to be true. The unwitting harbinger of this seismic change was my son. Bless his innocent 7-year-old heart. All wide eyes and perpetually sticky fingers. He had discovered a USB drive, tucked away in a forgotten corner of my husband's old briefcase, a relic of a life that now felt impossibly distant. Driven by a child's unbridled curiosity about whatever digital treasures it might contain, he plugged it into his tablet. What he found, however, was no game or cartoon. It was a folder starkly labeled, Events. He called me in, not with alarm or distress, but with that simple, earnest question children often pose when confronted with something perplexing. "Mommy, why are there so many pictures of Aunt Carol at Daddy's wedding?" Aunt Carol, my younger sister, and at the time my husband's sister-in-law, a familial connection that now felt tainted with a profound irony. The wedding in question was mine, my own wedding a decade prior. A day I had meticulously curated into a perfect memory. My son, with his unfiltered naive curiosity, had inadvertently stumbled upon the first minuscule clue in a long dark mystery. Initially I dismissed it. Children, I reminded myself, often misinterpret things. Perhaps Carol had simply been in a lot of the photographs. But the seed of unease had been planted, a tiny persistent itch beneath the surface of my consciousness. Later that evening, long after my son had succumbed to the deep, untroubled sleep of childhood, I found myself inexplicably drawn back to that folder. My fingers, almost of their own volition, navigated to it, clicked it open, and there they were. Not just a few scattered images, but dozens, hundreds even. My wedding photos. My husband looking impossibly young and undeniably handsome, his arm slung casually around my waist, a gesture of possession and affection that I had cherished. And then, interspersed with an unsettling, almost seamless grace, were pictures of my sister, Carol. She was there, a prominent figure in the background, laughing animatedly with friends. She was there, standing beside my husband at the reception, her bridesmaid sash slightly askew, a detail I had never noticed before. And then one particular image seized my attention. She was there, her face turned towards his, a soft, almost tender smile on her lips, a candid shot that, in retrospect, felt disturbingly intimate. It was the sheer casualness of their interactions that struck me most profoundly. The effortless way they seemed to inhabit the same space, so comfortable, so at ease in each other's company, even amidst the orchestrated joy and formality of my wedding day. It felt inherently wrong, a discordant note in the carefully composed symphony of my most cherished memories. I scrolled through the images, my breath catching in my throat, a cold, hard knot tightening in my stomach. There were photos of them dancing together. Not the polite, obligatory wedding dance, but a close, almost intimate, swirling embrace. Photos of them sharing a private joke, their heads bent close, a world of shared understanding seemingly contained within that shared moment. Photos of them leaving the venue together, their figures silhouetted against the fading glow of the setting sun, their hands brushing a fleeting, almost imperceptible touch. My wedding. The day I had felt like a fairy tale princess. The day I had stood before our loved ones and promised forever. And here, in this hidden digital vault, a silent testament to a shadow that had been lurking, a secret woven inextricably into the very fabric of my most significant day. The days that followed were a blur, a thick fog of disorientation. I found myself replaying conversations, scrutinizing fleeting looks, desperately searching for any sign, any subtle indication, that I had somehow missed. My husband, blessedly or tragically, remained oblivious, his life continuing its predictable, comforting rhythm. He had always been a good man, or so I had believed. Steady, dependable, a loving father who adored our son. My sister Carol was my confidant, my closest ally. We had grown up together, shared countless secrets whispered in the dark, celebrated each other's milestones with genuine joy. Or so I had always thought. The more I looked, the more I saw. The USB drive, it turned out, contained more than just wedding photos. There were pictures from our anniversaries, birthday parties, even seemingly casual family gatherings over the years. And in almost every single one of them, Carol was there, a constant, pervasive presence, often positioned uncomfortably close to my husband. A hand lingering on his arm. A shared, knowing glance, a smile that seemed just a little too intimate, a little too knowing. But it wasn't just photos. There were also scanned documents, a chilling testament to their clandestine communication. Old emails, printouts of text messages, even hastily scribbled handwritten notes. The language at first was veiled, couched in suggestive euphemisms, but it became increasingly explicit, the layers of pretense stripping away to reveal a raw, undeniable truth. References to stolen moments, to secret meetings, to a love that had to be hidden, a passion that burned in the shadows. The timeline laid out before me in stark, indisputable clarity was horrifying. The clandestine messages began months before my wedding, weaving a secret narrative that ran parallel to our courtship and engagement. And they persisted incredibly, astonishingly well into our marriage, continuing for years. 2 years. 2 years of stolen moments, of whispered promises exchanged in hushed tones, and shared intimacies that I, his wife, had been utterly, completely oblivious to. The sheer audacity of it, the profound and utter disrespect, hit me like a physical blow. They had built their secret world right under my nose, using my own wedding, my own celebrations, as the clandestine backdrop for their illicit affair. The anger that simmered within me was not a wildfire, a sudden destructive blaze. It was a slow burn, a cold, deep ache that settled into my bones, a primal instinct for retribution that demanded a measured approach. I didn't want to confront them immediately, not in a chaotic explosion of raw emotion. I didn't want to shatter the fragile illusion of my family's normalcy in a dramatic, cathartic outburst. That would only give them the spectacle, the power they might secretly crave. My revenge, I decided, wouldn't be a shouting match. It would be a slow, deliberate, almost artistic unfurling of the truth. I decided to start small, to sow seeds of doubt rather than unleash a storm. My husband's family was hosting their annual summer barbecue, a tradition that for me had always felt more like a chore than a celebration. This year, however, I had a quiet, compelling reason to attend. His elderly aunt, a formidable woman known for her sharp tongue and even sharper observations, would be there. She remembered my wedding, remembered Carol's presence, her keen memory a potential weapon in my arsenal. I arrived early, a large, meticulously organized photo album clutched in my hands. This was not a wedding album, nor a typical family scrapbook. It was a compilation of our family photos from the last 10 years. A curated collection designed to tell a very specific story. I had carefully selected images, strategically placing them side by side, creating a narrative of uncanny parallels. A picture of my husband and me beaming at a beach vacation. Next to it, a picture of Carol and my husband at a conference, their attire and poses remarkably similar, an almost uncanny mirroring. A photograph of our son's joyous first birthday celebration. Next to it, a candid shot of Carol and my husband laughing, his arm casually draped over her shoulders, taken, I knew, at the very same event. As the guests mingled, a cheerful cacophony of conversation and laughter, I positioned myself strategically near Aunt Carol, my movements deliberate and unhurried. I made small talk, feigning a casual interest in the old days, the nostalgia that often pervades such gatherings. Then, with a soft, almost wistful sigh, I opened the album. "Oh, Aunt Carol," I said, my voice carefully modulated to convey a touch of sentimentality, a hint of being overwhelmed by the passage of time. "I was going through some old photos the other day. It's amazing how quickly time flies, isn't it?" I turned the pages slowly, deliberately, allowing the images to speak for themselves. "Look at this one," I murmured, pointing to a photograph of my husband and me on our honeymoon, our faces etched with happiness. Such a happy time. Then, with a gentle, almost imperceptible nudge of my finger, I turned to the facing page. And here, this was the charity gala last year. Carol was there too, wasn't she? She always has such a knack for making him laugh. I watched her face, observing the subtle shifts in her expression. The initial flicker of recognition, followed by a subtle, almost imperceptible tightening of her jaw. She stammered a reply, her gaze darting from the photograph to my face, a flicker of something akin to panic in her eyes. I didn't press, didn't push. I simply kept turning pages, my voice a soft murmur of reminiscence, as if lost in the gentle current of memory. I pointed out another pairing. A photograph of my husband with our child, then a candid shot of him and Carol at a seemingly innocent work event, their body language mirroring a similar intimacy, a shared comfort that felt out of place. I didn't accuse. I accused no one. I simply presented the narrative I had so meticulously constructed, allowing the visual evidence to speak for itself. I spoke about how funny it was, how often they seemed to be in the same place, how they always seemed to have so much fun together. I punctuated my observations with little sighs and thoughtful hums, as if truly marveling at the remarkable coincidences. The atmosphere around Aunt Carol began to shift, a subtle but undeniable change. She became guarded, her usual boisterous energy subdued. She started making excuses to move away, her face a little too pale, her movements a little too hurried. But the seeds were sown. Other guests, drawn by curiosity or perhaps by Aunt Carol's sudden discomfort, glanced at the album. Murmurs began to ripple through the gathering. "Oh yes, I remember that party. Carol was there, wasn't she? They do seem to have a lot of fun together." Over the next few weeks, the subtle tremors began to spread. My husband noticed the shift in his aunt's demeanor. She started making pointed comments about loyalty, about the importance of honesty in relationships, all directed vaguely in his direction. He'd brush them off, attributing them to her age, her tendency towards dramatic pronouncements. But the unease was there, a subtle undercurrent in their conversations, a crack in the foundation of their relationship. Then came the family reunion, a larger gathering this time, involving both sides of the family, a more public forum for my carefully orchestrated unveiling. I made sure to bring the album again. This time I was more open, more conversational, my demeanor radiating a casual warmth. I'd show it to my own mother, to my husband's cousins, my voice light, almost playful. "Isn't it funny," I'd say, my smile genuine, "how often my husband and Carol are in the same pictures? They must have so much in common." I watched as other people started to connect the dots, their eyes widening with a dawning unspoken realization. Conversations would stall, replaced by awkward silences and furtive sidelong glances. My sister, Carol, was present, but she seemed to shrink, her usual effervescence replaced by a nervous fidgeting. When someone would ask her about a particular photo, a question about a shared moment, she'd blush crimson and offer a weak, unconvincing explanation, her voice barely a whisper. The social fallout wasn't immediate or dramatic. It was a gradual erosion of comfort, a slow leaching of warmth. People started treating Carol differently. Invitations to family events became less frequent. Conversations became more guarded, laced with unspoken suspicion. She was no longer the charming, vivacious cousin and sister-in-law. She was the woman who seemed to have a little too much history with her sister's husband, a narrative that was now publicly whispered. My husband, sensing the subtle but undeniable shift in the family dynamic, became more withdrawn. He'd ask me what was going on, his brow furrowed with genuine confusion. I'd just smile, a calm, knowing smile, my eyes holding a quiet certainty. "Oh, I don't know," I'd say, my voice soft. "Maybe people are just starting to notice how much you two have in common." The true quiet justice wasn't in his public humiliation, not in a dramatic confrontation or an explosive argument. It was in the slow, dawning realization that their secret, once exposed, had become an unbearable burden. Their stolen moments, captured in those seemingly innocent candid photographs, now served as silent, relentless accusers. They were no longer private memories, cherished only by the two of them. They were social proof, a tangible testament to their indiscretion, now irrevocably public. He never confronted me directly about the photos, about the album, about the systematic dismantling of our shared history. He didn't have to. The damage was done. The trust, the easy familiarity, the unshakable foundation that had once defined our marriage, was irrevocably fractured. He saw it in the way his family looked at them, in the subtle but palpable distance that now existed between him and his sister. He saw it in my eyes, which held no anger, no recrimination, only a profound, quiet sadness, a hollow space where love and trust had once resided. The affair, or whatever it was, eventually withered and died. The constant scrutiny, the unspoken judgment, the weight of the public's watchful gaze made it impossible to sustain. They were left with the echoes of their secret, the lingering ghosts of their indiscretions haunting every family gathering, every shared glance. I still have the USB drive. I don't look at the photos anymore. They served their purpose, a painful but necessary catalyst for change. The silence that has settled between me and my husband is a different kind of silence than before. It's not the comforting silence of ignorance, but the heavy, palpable silence of knowing. And in that quiet space amidst the ruins of what once was, there is a straw, and cold sense of resolution, a hard-won peace born from the ashes of deception.